3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 18th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Microsoft is trying to let Blizzard bloom, and a new Mafia is possibly getting announced soon. Not like a shoot Mafia, a video game Mafia. But first, please join me in welcoming today's I know you were worried, Jan. Today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings, it's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
That's right. I finally not bumped off Thursdays. All these bums on Thursdays co-hosting with Grubb. Exactly. It's me, folks. I'm back. I'm really sorry. No one else that co-hosts on a Thursday is a bum. That's really rude of me to say. Everyone's experts.
But acknowledge him.
Exactly. Throw the ones up, baby.
What's up, there brother? You know about this sketch guy?
I don't know. You said it yesterday or the other day, and then I'm like, is that something I don't know about?
It's something I think it's something you don't know about. He's a popular Madden streamer, I believe. I've watched a little bit of him. He streams some other stuff too, but I think the main thing he does is Madden, and it's like caught on. I found out about it by watching SportsCenter, and the anchor did it. He goes, "What's up, brother?" You know, and he does and then he does like a hand jive,
and
then he goes like this. He goes, special teams, special plays, special players, and apparently that's what he says all the time as well. It's going to happen on this site all the time now, Jan. I'm sorry, it's happening.
It's going to happen. You just need to get Dan to get into it, and then you need to get Mike to get into it. Mike is going to revolt against it at
Mike's
first.
Mike's definitely going to revolt against it at first, absolutely.
And then he's going to begrudgingly say it and smile and smirk. And then Bacalar 2 weeks later is going to be like, "What are you guys doing?" What?
And then Dib will do it, and he'll be like, "Oh Jesus." Yeah. It's all coming up. Jan, I slept with tape on my mouth last night.
Oh, is it? Okay. I think I know what you're doing.
Yes.
But how is sleeping with tape over your mouth?
Well, I did want to get a CPAP machine, but my doctor didn't help me with that, and I haven't had time to go back there. So apparently it's supposed to help you deal with the apnea and breathe through your nose more. You're not supposed to put a lot of tape on there, which I definitely did at first. I'm like, this isn't right. I should look up instructions about what to do here. You're supposed to put like a tiny little strip like here. And I got like the medical tape. I'm not using duct tape. My skin's fine, everybody. Don't worry. Tiny little strip here. And it worked great. It worked pretty good. And I'm feeling pretty chipper. I'm feeling pretty good.
There we go.
And it could be a placebo effect, Jan. I have no idea, but I'll take it. I'll take what I can get these days. That's where I'm at. I got the prime. I got the tape on my mouth. I'm fucking thriving over here. All right.
While we're talking about medical stuff, I've started taking antidepressants, and I have no idea if they're working or not. Right. But I think they're working.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the next step, Jan. That's definitely next one. I'm like, oh, everybody's taking that. I'm the only one not. Okay, I'm missing out. Clearly, I'm missing out on something. So that's next up. All right. Oh, boy. I should explain what we do here. Most weekdays,
I'm so sorry to the GameSpot audience. I'm so sorry.
They love it. That's all I ever hear for this. They love this. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Blizzard says it still talks about a console version of World of Warcraft. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. Got a couple of Blizzard stories here. We'll start with this one. Speaking to VGC in a recent interview, Holly Longdale, the vice president and executive producer of World of Warcraft, discussed life after becoming part of Microsoft. Asked about a console version of the game, the producer replied, "Of course we still talk about it. We're gamers. I don't think anything is out of the realm of possibility, but we don't have anything to talk about right now." Longdale also addressed the prospect of a console version of the game at BlizzCon 2023, calling it a complicated question. "We've got these 3 expansions and we are so excited about them, but yeah, of course, it would be very insincere to say that we are not, like, of course we're talking about that." And it's a little bit hurt, just taking a curve there. "We are at Microsoft now. That's I think that's like the key cornerstone to this conversation, Jan, is
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft is a game that people have always said, should that come to console? And then you talk to someone like Mike or any of these other WoW freaks, and they'll be like, that's really doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a hard game to imagine playing on a controller, and especially the way people play it today. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and something that, of course, they probably are talking about, and that we keep hearing repeatedly from them that they are. Now that they are into Microsoft, you would assume that conversation could be amplified a little bit. Like, why wouldn't we bring it to the Xbox Series X and S? And then integrate it with Game Pass. You see how all that makes sense. Do you think today it's like more likely that they're going to do it than it was a couple years ago?
I definitely think it is 100% more likely, especially with so many Final Fantasy 14 players playing on console, or even I've seen cases of folks playing on PC but preferring to play with a controller versus mouse and keyboard. So I think if a popular MMO like Final Fantasy 14 is able to cater that experience to console players, it's a no-brainer for WoW to try and do the same, if not just like whole hog steal some of that approach.
Yeah.
And it feels more enticing to as someone that has Game Pass, that may have been WoW curious or just been on the periphery of the whole WoW phenomenon throughout the years, to be like, oh, this is included with Game Pass. I don't have to pay an additional monthly subscription, and I can try this out for at least maybe a couple levels. I think that would entice me even to check it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely like, oh, I'll go play that Battle Royale mode, but that's mostly like a lark. That's like a joke. I'm like, oh, I'll go do that because it'd be funny if that was my only interaction with WoW. But that doesn't mean I'm like, would never, ever consider the possibility of playing that game. Of course I would. If it was right there, I would be more likely. I do wonder, we had the conversation in the last week about the subscription numbers for that game, for World of Warcraft. I wonder if it's like, actually it's doing too good on its own to really make it make sense to combine it with Game Pass. The rumor or the reporting is that it has about 7.5 million subscribers, in that range, which is an astonishing number still. At its height, it was at like 15 million, 12 million, somewhere in that range. It was very, very high at one point. These days, though, it was like, it's really fallen from there, and it's got down so low that they stopped reporting the numbers. And now it seems to like bounce around between like 4 million to 7 million, I suppose.
Wow.
I thought it would be like down to like 1 to 2 million. And even then, it's like that is a ton of money every month that people are subscribing for a single video game. That's very good money. At 7 million, though, that is so huge that you kind of like don't mess with that too much. Do you think that's part of it? Like, this is a thing where they're afraid to poke at any of the pieces because maybe the whole thing will come crumbling down in some way? I don't know.
Yeah, I saw someone in chat mention that Dragonflight had did a lot to put WoW back on course. Thank you, Mechanized. And I think when you have something as precarious in long running as WoW, you don't want to pull one of the pieces out on accident. So perhaps including it into Game Pass would be, but even then, I don't think it's too much to like. That wouldn't be too much of an influx of new players to rock the boat, because I'm assuming all those people would be starting at the bottom floor versus all these existing WoW players existing where they are in high level places. I don't feel like it would fudge with the numbers too much, because like unless like all these veteran players are suddenly getting upset that there's new players. But I think we were talking about this on the Bombcast, where Fallout 76 veterans aren't getting mad at new players coming in because there's new players coming in. So that's like
that's right. They love that,
And I think if a popular game that I'm playing suddenly has more people playing, that can eventually lead to support from the devs or new things popping off eventually.
Yeah.
I say more the merrier.
Yeah, and I think that they probably would look at it that way in the end while these conversations do happen. Do you think the reverse could be a beneficial thing as well, where if you have a WoW subscription, now included with that is Game Pass Ultimate, and you get to go play all these Game Pass games, do you think that benefits in the reverse direction, or do you think MMO players are MMO players? Because I get the sense that that's kind of the case.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, the inverse of that. I think that could be a beneficial exchange as well. right? Because like if you're an MMO player, that's just your game, right?
Yeah.
And if you suddenly have Game Pass and you're like, oh, wait, what? They've been making other games for the past 20 years? I think that may incentivize folks because, you know, whenever we see a popular game have a free weekend during the holidays or just randomly, it'll be a good boost, but I don't know how much momentum they carry after that free weekend. Like how much conversion they're able to complete. That's an interesting thing. Microsoft should just cut us a check, Grubb.
Yeah, I think so. We got it. We got it here. We got it all figured out.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about MMO players is they have the people that they play with, right? Especially WoW and Final Fantasy 14. I think some of these other MMOs that these people play, a lot of them are kind of actually more solo experiences in some way, and then you go at the end game, you go raiding. I guess it's probably true of WoW and Final Fantasy 14. I'm not an MMO player to a certain extent, but people do play those games so much they end up eventually playing with other people. That networking effect always is something that you can capitalize on if you're like, okay, well, you know, while we're in a lull on this game, we do have Game Pass, and this game just got added. Maybe we can go play that while we're waiting. I could see that being somewhat beneficial. I just think that the people who subscribe to these things probably are like, we're going to keep this only if the game that we really love is delivering, and anything else that's happening in here, all these secondary and tertiary benefits, whether that's Game Pass or something else, probably wouldn't affect them too much. But I don't know. At the end, I think that these things do kind of come together, glom together a little bit more. If it doesn't look like, oh, okay, I have Game Pass, so therefore I have a subscription to WoW, maybe it's like some of these other games from like Riot, where it's like, you know, those are free-to-play games, but you get a benefit in those games if you have Game Pass. And maybe you get a benefit in WoW for having a subscription to Game Pass, and that's like, oh, some extra currency every month that you can use in the microtransaction store or something like that. I think they will take advantage of more of that in the end. Now, I think that leads into the other side of this. Well, this is Blizzard deciding what's best for their game and their subscription. How involved is Microsoft in you need to be doing things that's beneficial to us? Sounds like not so much quite yet. According to this headline, Microsoft has let Blizzard be Blizzard following its acquisition. That's according to the studio. And once again, from Jordan Midler at VGC. Microsoft has let Blizzard be Blizzard following its acquisition of the studio last year. That's according to Holly Longdale, executive producer and vice president of World of Warcraft, who discussed what life at Microsoft has been like for the developer during a recent interview with VGC. If anything, it's just been helpful, Longdale said. We got time with Helen Chang from Mojang, and we were sharing information. So it's almost as if we have access to what worked for them. We got to speak to the Elder Scrolls Online team and share what we're up to and what's been working. It's almost like we get a benefit. There's no one asking us to do anything, she continued. World of Warcraft is doing very well, and they're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish with it. So it's almost like just let it be, let it keep being awesome. They've been tremendously supportive, and it's like let Blizzard be Blizzard. What's your initial reaction to that, Jan?
My initial reaction is positive because, you know, when existing right now, fandom lets Giant Bomb be Giant Bomb.
Right, exactly.
And for the most part, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, as you start to ruminate on it more, what is broken at Blizzard currently? And if that's not being addressed because they're allowed to continue operating as they're operating, how is that hurting Blizzard in the long run? When sometimes you kind of do need that bigger oversight or that bigger support, or at least to align directions with your studio, right? Of like, we can't continue to let you be aimless, or maybe you are aimless right now and there's no focused direction as to where to head to, or at least goals to try and reach. Then maybe, I don't know, maybe Microsoft should just sit in on a meeting if they're not.
Yeah, I think the way I view it, and it's time for one of those Jeff Grubb analogies, is it's like a wounded animal, right? And it's taken into captivity, or it had like an abusive owner called Activision, and kind of like, you know, had this strong animal, and then it sort of got beaten down over time, and now it has a chance to like grow again. And does that growth benefit from being able to like find itself again on its own and let Blizzard be Blizzard that way, or does it benefit from a strong guiding a new ownership that's like, oh, I'm going to coddle you to a certain extent? Obviously I think it needs both in the end. I think, but to start with at this moment, it feels like the right answer is what's happening. Let Blizzard rebloom into something where it's like it has confidence again, and it feels like we are delivering at a level that is what Blizzard used to be or close. Maybe it'll never get to that level. It probably won't. I know there's a lot of people who look at Blizzard and it's like, that's not my Blizzard anymore. But I think there's a lot of people there that believe it could be and know what that is and are trying to make it happen. And I think the only way they can kind of reestablish that is on their own to a certain extent. And then when it comes to, okay, we have several projects that we're trying to do, and maybe we're biting off more than we can chew because we have been so confident, we have been doing so well, then Microsoft can be like, okay, here's where we're ready to support you, here's where you can learn. And in the meantime, do talk to these other studios that we have that are doing similar things, Elder Scrolls Online, sure, and figure out like how you guys can benefit from one another. So to me, this sounds all pretty good for the time being. I think the danger, though, Jan, right, is we're looking at like other studios that have had the hands-off approach from Microsoft and being like, well, that has been a problem in the past. Does that become a problem here, right?
Yeah, I think about Redfall, and I think that's what you're also alluding to, where it's like
definitely
not a lot of oversight from Microsoft, and that kind of became what Redfall became. But perhaps like monitoring Blizzard from like a very top level perspective of like getting rid of certain leadership, perhaps very toxic people in the workplace, and then letting Blizzard be Blizzard is the beneficial way for them to move forward. Because like, who knows Blizzard more than the folks that have been working there? You don't want to disturb too much. It's like what we're talking about with WoW, where you don't want to pull out one of the pieces that has been working and then suddenly the whole thing crumbles.
Right. I think,
that being said, I don't think anyone knows what to do with Overwatch 2.
Yeah, I mean, Overwatch 2 is definitely at a low point. I think you let it simmer. Give the team give the people that are at Blizzard that want to work on that game space and time to recover. And then I bet it has a resurgence like so many other games do. WoW being a pretty good example. WoW had some pretty down times in the last few years where people were really bummed out, and Final Fantasy XIV was like dancing on its non-existent grave, but dancing on its grave for lack of a better expression. And it is definitely resurging in a lot of ways where people are like very excited about the upcoming expansions. They're happy to be playing it. Mike keeps saying the people on the Reddit seem happy, and he's like stunned by that because he's never seen that before, I think. So if that community can have that happen, I think Overwatch 2 probably can. It's just going to take some time and letting creative people be creative for a while and focus on what that game really needs.
Yeah, I see folks in our chat chiming off of like perhaps doing that PvE campaign or just making a campaign to begin with.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's going to be enough to
know either, Jim. Yeah,
draw new players or lapsed players back into it. Perhaps what if they add a 6th team member?
That's impossible. Can games even support that? It's never been done before, I don't think.
I don't want to suggest controversial things here. I'm sorry.
Right, you're stepping on toes, Jan. You got to watch out. We'll see. I think you're right when we say no one knows. I don't know what Overwatch 2 really needs. It needs time, though. It needs some space. It needs an opportunity for us to miss it. I think it's the biggest flaw with what happened with Overwatch is they kind of overdid things. They over catered to esports, and everyone's kind of like, ugh. Yeah, like that's the opinion of Overwatch at a certain point. For years and years, it was like beloved and all this stuff, and then at a certain point, it's like, ugh, I don't want to deal with that anymore. Give us a chance to forget that that's how we feel at the moment.
Honestly, I know that the finals has kind of dipped in popularity because games like Helldivers 2 ate its lunch, but I really enjoyed the approach of like 3v3v3. I wouldn't mind other existing games trying to adopt that because at least with 3 players and the onus and the responsibilities are pretty evenly spread. And then like your team comps kind of, they matter to an extent, of course, but you can kind of fly by if you gain enough momentum. So what I'm saying is, let Overwatch 2 give me a 3v3v3 mode, and I just need 2 other tracers with me, and then we'll just be zipping and zapping all about the map.
That sounds pretty good. I like that a lot. All right, let's keep going here. 2K is gearing up for a Mafia announcement, it is claimed. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. That's according to Twitter user Kurakas, Kuracasis, there we go. Kuracasis, who has... Yeah, I don't know. I can't. Kraken, who has proven to be a reliable source of leaks. This year alone, they revealed the title of Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, Marvel's Rivals, Metro Awakening, and Indiana Jones in the Great Circle prior to their official announcements. They also accurately predicted that Take-Two studio Ghost Story Games was planning a Judas reveal several weeks before a new trailer for the game was released. And this is the quote from them. I can tell you that a few days ago, Take-Two began preparations for an announcement regarding the Mafia series, they said on Tuesday. Alongside Rockstar and Private Division, 2K is a publishing label of Take-Two, which said on Tuesday that it plans to lay off 5% of its workforce, resulting in the cancellation of unnamed game projects. 2K studio Hangar 13 confirmed in August 2022 that a new Mafia game was in development. While it's a few years away and we can't share anything more right now, we're really excited to keep working on this beloved franchise and to entertain our players with new stories. This is after Hangar 13 worked on another game, which was... I can't remember exactly what it was. I remember hearing about it. And it's, I want to say a shooter that involved lightning in some way, which feels like not a very good description. Probably because it's not accurate, but that's what the old brain is coming up with right now.
No, I think you're right here, Grubb. Let's keep chasing this thought.
Yeah, a shooter with lightning.
They worked on that before.
They worked on it for a while, but I don't think it ever turned. They definitely are not working on that anymore. They canceled that project, and then that's when they switched over to be like, we're going back to Mafia. That's what we're working on. So, Jan, I am never someone who. I've tried several of the Mafia games. I remember I tried Mafia 2 or 3. I think it must have been 2 on live streaming to my computer. Getting close to like 15 years ago now, at least 10 years ago. And I was like, I see the appeal, but I don't know if I'm finding any of the fun for me. I've never enjoyed a Mafia game, basically. I don't know if I played much Mafia 3, but 1 and 2 never clicked for me. That said, I think I like the idea of more Mafia. So when I look at those games, I'm like, I see something that looks appealing. It's like, I just don't know where it is for me. How about you?
It's like any time Sleeping Dogs came up of like, I've never actually played a Sleeping Dogs, but a lot of people enjoy that game. It's an alternative to GTA, and it isn't too zany and out there like the Saints Row series is. Sure, more Mafia.
Yeah.
Do you think, Grubb, that 2K sees the success of games like Yakuza and they're like, well, people love organized crime. Let's get Mafia out.
I think a little bit. I think everyone's kind of looking around at what is working, and like what works right now is sticking with these franchises for a long time, letting the fandom grow like organically, and letting them tell their friends, letting them make, long form YouTube videos, getting people excited about these things. And then eventually something just clicks in place and it's like, well, now it's mainstream. And that has happened with Yakuza. It's happened with a handful of other things.
Sure.
I think that it's definitely, Resident Evil was always popular. Resident Evil is more popular than ever because they keep sticking with it and they keep making the games better and they go back to the old games and it gives everyone a new chance to get on board. I think everyone's looking at their franchises and their IP and trying to see if they have anything that even closely resembles something that could do that. And I don't know if Mafia could do that. I'm skeptical too, I think, to a certain extent, but maybe it's closer than a lot of other things that 2K has waiting in the wings. Sure. And then maybe it's also a safer bet than trying a new game that's about shooting lightning. I don't know. So, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the Mafia has harnessed the power of lightning for organized crime.
Now, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a safe bet to rely on an older franchise, something like laying in their back pocket, and hope that hits on and that it also appeals to the nostalgia factor. But I can like Mafia, at least, despite not being super familiar with the series, it is a IP that I recognize and I remember seeing in magazines growing up. So I'm sure that if that has occupied my mind space and not this lightning shooter game, then it has at least done the same with the general gaming populace of like, oh yeah, I remember Mafia. Let me check that out.
Let me ask you, do you think like Saints Row, Jason Finelli in chat brings up like Saints Row, and it kind of clicked in place for me a little bit where I'm like, okay, that new Saints Row game was a full-on reboot, and it wasn't trying to carry forward the legacy of the old games. It was trying to be like, we're going to have the energy maybe, but we're going to do a lot of stuff new. That feels like a misstep these days, where it's like people want the time they invested into something to matter. And I think that people, even if you haven't invested time in a franchise, I think people enjoy the idea that there's a lore there and there's a history and there's stuff that matters. And that if you come to a new entry in there, you want it to be part of that because it feels like it's part of a bigger whole. And if you wanted to further dive into that, there's more stuff there. I think people are I don't know what it is right now that has people this way, but like those 30-hour long YouTube videos and I think these long franchises that have 1 million entries, I think people just want a lot of shit in front of them, a lot of content, and they want to be able to dive into it on their own terms. Yeah. And I think if you were to try to to capitalize on having an IP and try to do something like this that has happened with Yakuza or Resident Evil, it is to your benefit to be like, this is either a remake that is going to give you a new chance to replay something that people have talked about before, or it is a sequel, or at worst a legacy sequel, something that's like it's a reboot, but everything that happened before still matters. And maybe Saints Row, that game, I never really played it. Maybe it was that in the end, but if it didn't feel like that, it wasn't marketed like that. Does that make sense? What I'm getting at here?
Oh, 100%. I feel like that's why even Hollywood has kind of adopted like continuations of shows, or like we've seen spin-offs for forever, right?
Yep.
And we've seen that to great success. I learned fairly recently that Frasier is a spin-off of Cheers. And then you see the success of that because you want to capture that existing fan base, or at least capitalize off that nostalgic feeling or that familiarity, that if you have them on the hook for that, then potentially they'll dive all the way in for this thing, and then they'll continue to stick in. And I feel like to some extent, we bring up Yakuza, but I feel like Persona is another series that kind of capitalizes off of that familiar feeling, where it's not the same game each time, but like it's similar mechanics. You get the freaking the blue room all the time, and like you get your high school protagonists and social links that you're drawn to that. It's not insane, but it just feels weird thinking that Mafia is the game that has started this conversation, because I when I think of Mafia, Grubb, I think, and I hope I'm thinking of the right box art, but it's like a stencil of a dude, right? Over a gray wall?
I think you're thinking of Saboteur.
Oh, God.
Jan Ochoa is thinking of Saboteur like he always is.
Mafia. Yeah, if I type Mafia game, oh, this is poor SEO. Okay, abandoned ship. It's bad.
Yeah, Google the Saboteur and see if that is. And if it's not, I guess it could be the Godfather, the game. Jason says that's a good point.
I might be thinking of the Godfather game.
Okay, but listen, Mafia 1 is definitely was 100% trying to be Godfather, the video game. That is, yes, I think so. Yeah, and
I'm thinking of The Getaway.
The Getaway. Okay, we got there eventually. Yes. Car-based open world game. Yeah, 100%. The Mafia one was like the one where it's like, we're going to be in old-timey cars. They're not going to go faster than 35 miles per hour and stuff. It's going to be just like Godfather. So they were definitely going for that.
Well, here's the thing, Grubb. I feel like there's also such an appetite right now for GTA, right? Because GTA 6 excitement is building and everything, and folks that want to satiate that craving probably have already played through GTA 5 multiple times throughout different consoles at this point. And GTA Online probably seems way too intimidating to get into,
right?
That they want that similar catered crime experience. So I think that's where Mafia could easily slide in and fill that spot, especially when something like Saints Row is kind of known to be zany. And with that newest title not quite hitting the mark, in appealing to either camp of like organized crime craziness or off the wall humor. Something like a Mafia could easily slide in, or The Getaway.
Right.
Grubb, we're talking about like kind of manufacturing excitement and hype and nostalgia. I want this to happen with Mercenaries.
Yeah, I feel like that was kind of like thinking some along the similar lines where it's like these things go away for a while because people are like, they're not performing like we imagined they could. And then other things kind of have a similar like arc. And then they look around and be like, what could hit right now? What would hit really hard with an audience that hasn't had something in a while? And it's like, I think Mercenaries is a good example. I think open world crime games, as you were getting at, definitely a good example because it's like, okay, people love those things. But for a long time there, you just couldn't compete with GTA. And then they stopped putting out GTA games. And, you know, GTA 6 obviously is coming out. But that is going to be such a pillar that it feels like there is now an opening of little vacuum in between those releases where some of these other games can perform way better than they ever have in the past. And the hunger will be there. And the appreciation will be there. And I think something similar could happen for Mercenaries and a lot of other genres that have, like, waned recently. I think real-time strategy feels like on PC is the next one that's really going to pop off in a big way. A lot of developers are counting on that. Obviously, not all those bets are going to pay off, though, right?
Yeah. I think while we're talking about genres kind of returning, I feel like there's also a desire for rhythm games to come back because it's been such a long time. And I feel like that market got super oversaturated, but I think there's a desire for plastic instruments to come back.
Yeah, I got my DDR pad out still. I've been meaning to hook it up. What's the best DDR game I could play on my Mister? I need to look that up and play it on my CRT. That'd be fun.
There's so many.
That'd be fun. We'll see. All right, so let's move along here. Hasbro already considering next Baldur's Gate title without Larian. This is from Moises Tavares, a nasty boy at Kotaku. Despite the fact that many hoped Larian Studios would continue to work on the critically acclaimed Baldur's Gate 3, whether it was via DLC or a sequel, the developer announced last month that it would be moving on. During a talk at the game's developer conference, Larian CEO Sven Vink confirmed that the team is not only done with Baldur's Gate, but with the entirety of the Dungeons & Dragons brand and setting, which is helmed by Hasbro. Now we know that D&D's owner is already entertaining a Baldur's Gate sequel without the team behind its latest hit. Speaking to PC Gamer, Hasbro's Eugene Evans stated that a number of teams have come forward to express interest in developing future titles in the series. We're now talking to lots of partners and being approached by a lot of partners who are embracing the challenge of what does the future of Baldur's Gate franchise look like. Evans doesn't exactly have an answer to these questions, but he's definitely, like he says, talking to a lot of partners. This is a tough position to be in, right? How do you follow up Baldur's Gate 3? How do you follow it up with a team that isn't Larian Studios? I think for the first couple of games, after Baldur's Gate 3, you kind of have to like go in a completely different direction, right?
You kind of got to go in a completely different direction, and I don't know if you can even call it Baldur's Gate 4.
Oh, yeah, probably not.
Yeah, like I think this has to be like another Dark Alliance type of joint where it's like an offshoot or a spinoff. It's also, I understand why Hasbro would already want another Baldur's Gate with the huge success that 100%. Baldur's Gate 3 was. But after hearing how the folks at Larian talk about that game, talk about development, supporting it, it's like, okay, this is a studio that really cares about their game and cares about the players as well. And like the rabid community, the passionate fan base that I don't know if you can easily slot in a different developer to make a similar game. It has to be completely different at that point, Grubb. Like,
yeah.
But then I don't think you will capture that same fan base because those folks that have played through Baldur's Gate 3 multiple times at this point are very attached to Larian Studios. That seeing another developer on that, I don't think they will be. I don't think they'll be enticed to play through a Baldur's Gate 4 if it's not made by Larian.
This is the type space that they're in, right? Where it's like they have options. None of them are going to be exactly what anyone wants, including Hasbro. So I mean, okay, then like if I imagine what the best version looks like, where it's like, okay, we're going to pretend the world exists where no one can do what Larian's doing. I think we might actually live in that world, so it's very easy to imagine it. But no one's going to be able to do a Baldur's Gate 4 that feels like a true successor to Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, fine. So then I think Dark Alliance probably is the right move, and then you take as much inspiration from Baldur's Gate 3 as you can at that point. So a lot of choices matter stuff, a lot of deep character stuff.
Open-ended.
Open-ended. Yeah, exactly. Whatever a developer feels confident they can deliver while doing something that is a very different game in terms of how you play it. I think that could be successful, but I just don't envy anyone that is in this scenario at all.
No, I just think about how much work had to go into Baldur's Gate 3 and for Hasbro to kind of be shopping around for another developer to make a successor to that. How do you even begin to make the framework for...
Jane, I'm going to go get my kid off the bus. I'll be right back.
How do you even begin to make something that approaches that? And I see folks chiming in of like, oh, just perhaps take those same characters and throw them into a different thing. I don't know if the Baldur's Gate 3 audience that is very heavy into the D&D verse we've seen the rise of D&D, whether it's tabletop stuff. I'd like to get into D&D personally. Hello, Lex.
Okay, Jan, here's the pitch.
What?
Here's the pitch.
Okay, I'm hearing the pitch.
The pitch is Baldur's Gate 4, but it's just a dating sim.
Okay, I'm back on board. I think that'll get everyone. Are we dating the same characters? Are they different characters?
I think it's important that you bring back some of the characters. I think it's important that that I can still smooch Karlach, because if I couldn't, like, what are we doing here?
Right.
But we can also bring in new characters, and we can bring in more freaky, weird dudes, just weird little guys.
I love weird little guys. I'm back.
Lex was pitching that Baldur's Gate 4 is just a dating sim. Thank you, Lex.
I think that's a good idea too. Like something like very weird. That's a good idea.
Grubb, do you think they're gonna... I could see it happening, and I hate that I'm smiling, but like I could see a Baldur's Gate 4 where Hasbro gets a developer, and that developer suddenly decides, or maybe because of Hasbro, hey, all these things that people liked about Baldur's Gate 3? The turn-based stuff? Rolling dice? What about we threw that shit out the window and made it a hack and slash?
Yeah, right. It's Hasbro, right? They could do take Sorry or one of their board games and just turn that into Baldur's Gate 4.
I don't know why I was thinking Baldur's Gate 4 should be set in the future.
All right, Jane, now you're onto something. Now you're cooking. Stand back, everybody. Let
make
them do
it cyberpunk orcs. What if you could fuck a robot bear?
Well, okay, now you're really talking. Like, what's better than fucking a bear? A robot bear.
Exactly.
All right.
You don't need to have like a special awareness or skills with your character to understand bear speak. The robot just translate it for you.
There you go. That's beautiful. I'm sorry. VGC just had a thing pop up where they did their podcast. I have their notifications turned on. And it's Jordan Midler asking, is Kefki the worst Pokemon? Jan, what is your answer? Yes or no?
Klefki is not... There's so many worse Pokemon, and I would even include some of the god Pokemon.
Yes.
Are trashed here. Some of the newer Paradox Pokemon are stupid.
Yeah. I like the ones that are like, I'm an object. I'm keys. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. Like, I'm a pile of sand. I'm an ice cream cone.
Yeah, those are fun. Reminds me of those like little Burger King Transformer toys that were like, I'm fries. No, I'm not. Maybe those McDonald's. I don't know. All right, we're going to move on. Actually, you know what? Let's take an actual break now for the podcast. And when we get back, a lot more headlines to get to, including what's happening with a Golden Axe animated series right after this. All right, and we are back. And Star Trek Lower Decks creator is bringing Golden Axe animated series to Comedy Central. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. Earlier this month, word broke that Star Trek Lower Decks will end after Season 5. However, series creator Mike McMahon has already lined up his next show. Via Variety, Comedy Central has ordered a new comedy series based on Sega's Golden Axe video game. They have, like, quite a bit of information here, but just like, let's start there. Jim, does that sound like something that is appealing to you?
I really enjoyed Golden Axe as a kid. Sure.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like, I can see how, because it's got strong iconographic characters, right? Like these, they're not. It's not even iconographic. They just literally are icons. Big warrior man,
dwarf.
Strong. Yes, dwarf, little magic dwarf guy. These things are just like what you imagine when you imagine these archetypes. So it's like you can do a lot of that with a show that is going to play on that. It sounds like that's what's going to happen here. They have an axe battler, a barbarian warrior with a strict code of honor and sweet golden retriever demeanor. His brawn outweighs his brains, but his heart outweighs his brawn. Tyrus Flare, a fearsome battle sorceress, deadly in a fight and even deadlier with her sharp wit. Gilius Thunderhead, a grumpy dwarf battler with exceptionally poor hygiene and a chip on his shoulder. Hampton Squibb, a naive and experienced first-time adventurer who has dreamt of questing his entire life. He hopes his can-do attitude can make up for his inability to actually do anything. And then Kronos Evil Late, who is originally from Golden Axe 3. Kronos is a 100% badass humanoid panther. At least that's how Kronos describes himself. In reality, he's uncomfortably cheesy and can't read a room. So we got a what's the name? Batista from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we got another one of those characters. This is the kind of thing where I get to see how this all makes sense. It's a little bit strange, but I don't think it's out of the ordinary. And hey, more Golden Axe, I'm fine with that. I like those games enough.
Yeah, I think this is doing exactly what 2K is trying to do with Mafia, where you're capitalizing off of an existing IP and like, hey, we have this, let's do something with this. There's some type of brand awareness. If it's getting you and I to be like, oh yeah, sure, okay, then it is 100% doing that across the board for folks that are seeing this headline or will eventually see this pop up on their specific streamer. Seeing that Danny Pudi is involved from Community has me excited. My curiosity is at least piqued.
Yeah, he plays Hampton Squibb, which it sounds like, the star, the audience stand-in, I would think, which makes sense. I'm trying to see if any of these other names stand out. Carl Tart, don't recognize that.
Liam McIntyre.
And then Lisa Gilroy. Yeah.
Not familiar.
But it's a Comedy Central show, so I think I already know what to imagine there, except for it's like animation on Comedy Central has never been great. They always sort of like treat it really second class, which is why Cartoon Network and then Adult Swim like always like really stepped all over Comedy Central whenever they would try to do animated television. So like I hope it doesn't. I hope it's not another one of those where it comes and goes because Comedy Central doesn't know what to do with an animated comedy show. But we'll see.
But Grubb, they're the central for comedy.
It is the center of the comedic universe. They do say that about themselves. It has to work in that case. When's the last time you watched Comedy Central?
2006.
Yeah, I've definitely watched Adult Swim since the last time I watched.
Totally.
Central. Adult Swim's like something I would still check out.
If you were to ask me what I think the Comedy Central logo is, I think it's still the one with a skyscraper.
Right? Is it not?
I think it's like a C.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Okay. No, I probably watched Key and Peele on their YouTube channel, Comedy Central's YouTube channel.
Right. Okay. Definitely. Okay. 100%. All right. Next story. Braid Anniversary Edition is getting delayed to May. This is from Nintendo Everything. Braid Anniversary Edition is seeing a delay, but only a short one at that. Thekla, the studio, is moving it to May 14th, 2024. Braid Anniversary Edition was confirmed for Switch in 2020, but most recently it was slated for April 29th. Also announced today is that Braid Anniversary Edition will feature a combination of 40 brand new and alternative redesigns of original levels, further bolstering the variety of changes and updates coming to the Anniversary Edition that still preserve the fundamental integrity of the original release. There's some other details here, Jam, but Braid getting a little bit of a delay, that's fine. I kind of forgot that this was still happening because it was announced so long ago, and then Mike brought it up as potentially showing up at the Indie World Showcase. It wasn't there, and seemingly because of this delay. So it's just coming out next month. I never got into Braid. I was a huge fan of The Witness, not a huge fan of the creator, but I never really got into Braid, and I was always going to be like, okay, this Anniversary Edition will give me another chance to check it out. I'm hoping it will hit for me this time, because I do want to like this game, because I know a lot of people really enjoy it. I do wonder if it holds up, though. Did you ever play Braid?
I'm in the same exact boat as you, Grubb. I saw the internet clamoring over this game, and it never clicked with me initially. But I do want to I do want to make sure that I like the same things that Soulja Boy does. So maybe when this anniversary collection comes out, then maybe me and I don't know Soulja Boy's real name. Soulja can lock in.
Yeah, you guys will finally have something to talk about, I think, with this. I'm like kind of curious to see like what has taken so long, but it might just be one of those projects where it's like nothing's obviously like causing it to be delayed. It's just it's hard to get back to work on something once you put it down, I think is probably what ended up happening here. But there were additional details on the new levels. There's 14 commentary index levels used to navigate the game's 15 plus hours of commentary. 13 new full puzzle levels featuring 16 new puzzle pieces used to complete a new frame. 12 alternate designs coupled with design commentary offering a glimpse of Braid had different if Braid had different development decisions been made. So a lot of interesting stuff there for people who are curious about how the game got made. That's the kind of stuff I do like in these things.
Yeah, I do like that. I wish there was more developer commentary. Like I would love for Sam Lake and Kyle Rowley and the whole crew to be like, all right, this is why we decide to do this. And then like you hear them like,
and then they're like
sipping coffee,
and then they say sauna, and they're like, oh, I mean sauna. That's how we really say it. We haven't been fucking with you this whole time. I'm like, I knew it. And
then like I want to like turn a corner, and then they'll be like, hi, Jan. I'm like, what? that was for me.
I like commentaries too, especially when they address my friend Jan. That's always fun.
We should do an episode of Game S Mornings where we just release the same episode, but you and I do commentary over it.
I like that a lot. Yeah, we'll do that. That's definitely going to have to happen eventually. Giant Bomb director's commentary. We can do that. All right, Fallout 4 jumps to #1 across Europe following TV show launch. This is from Christopher Dring over at GamesIndustry.biz. Shout out to Dring. Sales of Fallout games have shot up across Europe, with Fallout 4 reclaiming the #1 spot. The 2015 game sales soared over 7,500%. It's hard to say it because it's such a big number. 7,500% week on week across Europe. This is GSD data that tracks digital game sales across all European markets and physical sales across all major European countries. That includes UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. This is due to some heavy discounting on games in the Fallout franchise across all platforms. It's also tied in with the Fallout TV show, which has proven to be a smash hit on Amazon Prime. So we've been talking about, hey, a lot more people are playing these games, but maybe it's people going back to it who already own it. Well, it's not just that. People are buying it, and a big part of that is they lined up these sales with the show, and so everything has just synergized perfectly, and 7,500% increase from last week to this week is massive.
Insane.
Yes.
I know that like a big motivating factor is, at least on PC, the games are like heavily discounted, but can you think of another instance, Grubb, where folks are flocking to an older game? Because at least when The Last of Us came out, there was Last of Us Part 2.
Releases,
yeah. Oh, I guess like did I don't think the Twisted Metal show did anything to move the needle for.
Well, that's interesting.
I bet Metal games.
I think it probably did something to move the needle, but nothing akin to this, right?
Oh, okay. What about the Halo show? Like, I'm sure that caused some type of spike.
Probably a little bit.
But like to this extent, like what is the growth? 7,000% is insane.
So the other example is definitely The Witcher. The Witcher show on Netflix was massively popular, and when it first launched, people really liked it. And then the games did very well. Like I think that year for selling Witcher 3 specifically was its second best year after its launch year. So it's like it had several years in between that. It's like down, and then it shot back up and had its second best year. But the Halo show, I think the Halo show is the other good example for the opposite reason, because I think the Halo show had a lot of issues, and it wasn't something that people were like, oh, you got to go watch this. I think a lot of Halo fans were like, I have a lot of problems with this. This show frustrates me, so I'm not going to go tell people to watch this. And I think that's the kind of thing where it's like, you can get a lot of sales if you have something that people are happy to talk about. And if you have something that people kind of like scratch their head or are frustrated by, you're not going to see the benefits. But then jump to Fallout, and now clearly people like this show quite a bit, and the games are benefiting. And it's like, the Fallout show does specifically turn the world into one of its big stars. One of its big attractions is there's a lot of lore, a lot of character here, and so if you want to explore more of that, the games are there and available for you, and they're readily available. Unlike Twisted Metal, which like Twisted Metal, like those games probably are like technically available, but you can't go to the store and buy a Twisted Metal game for the most part. And even buying them digitally, it's like, yeah, you might be able to get them through a subscription service, but buying some of these Twisted Metal games probably wouldn't do the same. And even then, it's like, are you getting what you want out of a Twisted Metal game? A lore-driven show or whatever like that? Are you going to get more out of that lore? A little bit, but not like Fallout.
Grubb, do you think the way that the Fallout show is structured, where it is existing in the universe, but you're not necessarily playing as any or following the same story beats as any of the games, do you think that helps out because it's like open-ended nature with the games? You can kind of like recreate the experience from the show or kind of just do your own thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the right move for adapting from video games. I think it's often the right idea when you're adapting to video games from like a movie, like to have like, okay, it's not going to be exactly the events of the movie, but sometimes I like that, even though it's often very cheesy. But when you're going from video games, it's like there are a handful of games where if you just adapted their story, it would probably be okay. I think Last of Us definitely seems like that's what they're doing, and that seems to be working just fine for them. But for Fallout, where it's like this massive tapestry of different lores, and like it's set up in such a strong way where there are all these vaults, and every vault is a different experiment by Vault Corp, or whatever the name is, Vault Tech. And so it's like, okay, when you look at that, if you're a show creator and a writer, you're like, well, we'll just take our own and set up our own vaults and play on the themes of the overall Fallout universe while telling our own story. That's such a perfect setup for them. That was a no-brainer.
Because I that's what I think of when we bring up the Halo show kind of disappointed fans. And I did see some sentiment with folks picking up the Last of Us video games and thinking like, oh, Joel didn't do that in the show, or like my Joel wouldn't do this and Joel wound up doing that in the show, vice versa. Folks were also pointing out that the Cyberpunk show did gangbusters for the game as well.
Correct.
I'm curious if Arcane, like the League of Legends anime, did numbers for the game as well, because like that seems like an even harder thing to penetrate.
It does. It seems like the kind of thing where it's like, okay, that show ruled, and I haven't watched it, but everyone seems to really like Arcane. Okay, now where do I go to play this game? Well, about that. It's free to play. That's good news. And then everything else is kind of scary and weird and toxic in a lot of ways. But yet still, I bet it did do some numbers because of that.
Do you think, while we're continuing to think about the jumping to the games after watching the show, do you think the Castlevania anime did any type of influence?
Yeah, I think it absolutely did, and I think the influence was okay. Now where's the video game? I would love to go play this is based on a video game, right? Or a lot of people are like, I love Castlevania. I'm watching the show. Okay, now Konami, where's the new Castlevania video game? I'll buy it right now. And Konami's like, wait, what? And that has continued to be. Now the rumor is that is one of the things they're working on, is a Castlevania game alongside Silent Hill and the Metal Gear Solid Delta stuff. So they'll get around to it eventually. But I think that's because they did see those numbers and like, man, we fucked up. We should have had more Castlevania stuff. Now they had re-releases and bundles. The Castlevania Advance Collection came out like in that time area. And I hope a lot of people bought that game. I think that collection did very well, in part because the show was helping. But still, I think they were like, we missed out on an opportunity.
Oh God. We're in such a fun place right now with IP that is bouncing around and like transmedia properties, right? Because thinking about how we were chatting about Treasure Planet on the last Bombcast and how like this is a decent game that kind of got forgotten about, and then I started thinking about the history of like the Toy Story games and how some of those are actually pretty decent, if not good. And now we live in a world where the biggest skin pack for Fortnite is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I just see more and more clips of Fortnite again, similar to when Dragon Ball Z was popping off, because all these anime freaks or anime adjacent freaks are like just bending everywhere, and I can't sign up for Fortnite Club again, Grubb. I can't.
Yeah, but it's got you thinking about it though, and that's how that works. 100%.
When is Bring Your Kid to Work Day? When can we get Dib to
there
lead
we
us?
go, and then we could expense it. There it is.
No,
there's the answer. Yeah, someone pointed out that Dead Cells did have that Castlevania DLC.
Oh, right.
And that was something, and I think that did better than it would have had the show not been there. People really like those Castlevania shows too. It's like, and that's like kind of where you need to be. You need to be in a zone where it's like, oh, I've heard people talking very positively about those things, and then they are anticipating more from that show. If you are in that zone where it's like, not like Halo, where it's like Halo, like, I'm not so sure if I even want a season 2. And now season 2, apparently people are a little bit more happy with it. But you want to be in that zone where people are like, I cannot wait for more. If you're there, you can sell video games to that audience very easily, we've found. I think that's the trajectory we're going to see from a lot of these projects going forward.
Another fall off of this is thinking about how successful Walking Dead games continue to be. Because despite falling out of the mainstream to some extent, I think The Walking Dead as a franchise is still big enough that it warrants the show still going.
It's probably still one of the most popular like shows. I don't know which show at this point, because I think the main one ended, but there's like 5 other ones.
Who knows?
They brought back, what's his name, and Michonne, the ones who live. Yeah, Rick. Yeah, then like they have a show going right now or whatever. It's still got to be one of the most popular shows on cable, I would imagine, like secretly in the background. And you're right; those Walking Dead games continue to sell everywhere. Like I think one of the best-selling VR games is a Walking Dead game. Yeah,
to warrant a very prominently placed sequel in the PSVR 2 launch lineup.
Yeah. Man, Walking Dead was never good. The comics, I like the comics. I read a lot of them. The show was just never actually any good. It was always kind of like, well, when is this going to get decent? And it never did.
Oh, I'm watching some of it recently, and it was okay.
Okay. It's always okay is kind of where it would settle in at its best. All right, let's see here. Todd Howard on Fallout 5, which is where we started with this. I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything. This is from Haley Williams Todd. At GameSpot. Prime Video's new Fallout TV series has seen a renewed wave of interest in the Fallout game series, including the question of when we'll see the next mainline Fallout game. While Fallout 5 has been confirmed to be in development, Todd Howard has said in an interview that he's reluctant to put even a rough date on future releases. This is after, he in 2018 said Elder Scrolls 6 is one of the things we're working on next, and that is very, very far away still. So he just says, I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything. I've learned that the hard way. So obviously our focus as far as new development right now is on Elder Scrolls 6, but that doesn't mean that we're not making plans for other things. So yeah. When do you think we get Fallout 5?
Who the fuck knows, Grubb?
Yeah.
Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. And I think that's a bummer because like this show is doing very well. Yeah. People love Fallout. Turns out Fallout is a cool IP, and Fallout 76 initially screwed the pooch. I think by the time we get Persona 7-5.
Yep. I think 2030 is the date I'm looking at.
You know what? The thing is, that's scary, Grubb. That isn't that far.
It's only 6 years away,
It's not far.
It's not far at all. All right, Jan, do you care about this Pokemon Go's new character creator is out and everyone hates it? Yeah, it looks rough though. It looks rough. These pictures of these characters and how they used to look to how they look now, that's like waifu to why fuck off, am I right?
Hey yo, you got him.
Oh boy. Woof. They look bad. It's basically what the story is. They used to look good and they look bad now.
I forgot that I was subscribed to the Pokemon Go subreddit. And I was also subscribed to like the more hardcore Pokemon Go subreddit as well. But one of there is one.
Okay. Just have like wait, what's the name of it?
So the general one is just Pokemon Go, and then the hardcore focused one is the Sylph Road.
Yeah, the Sylph Road. Okay, I thought so. I subscribed to that for a while. Yeah.
And I was just there to pass tips to my partner. But I remember seeing a thread pop up on my feed recently of just in the general Pokemon Go subreddit asking, does Pokemon Go hate us? And the answer is, I think so.
Probably, yeah.
Because Grubb, this is the complete antithesis of everything we were talking about earlier in this episode of wanting to delicately move things to not have the whole tower collapse.
Right.
It feels like Niantic is just haphazardly pulling at things and showing and throwing blocks on top of the tower, because on top of all of this that is angering the Pokemon Go community and fan base, there's been a lot of other dumb changes that have popped up that have completely turned away a lot of players, or at least hampered the experience, and then like kind of like really ruined accessibility for a lot of Pokemon Go players, which stinks.
Yeah, they it just like everyone seems really disappointed with the game, right? Oh man, this is the one that really gets me. Just like this face here, just completely busted. But they also this one, it's like, how did they manage to whitewash a white man? that's what happened to this guy, and
Congratulations.
Yeah, there's some tough stuff happening over there.
Oh boy.
I wouldn't be surprised if Niantic's like, we have a lot of employees and we hired up because we were going to have 5 different versions of Pokemon Go with Harry Potter and the Pikmin and all this other stuff, and everything was going to build on top of one another, and then it's like, nope, we're back to just Pokemon Go. So we got to figure out what to do with all these people. And that means just trying new things, even though no one's really asking for these new things that we're doing. Like, it's strange.
Another feature they introduced and launched that was half-baked was like a route system. So you just follow a route in your neighborhood, and it wasn't clear how bonuses worked. It wasn't clear like how you actually finished the route, what you were able to gain. And they added like a whole other like candy or kind of currency to it. God, it's just bad. It's just bad, Grubb.
It's rough out there. Let's get to the poll question from yesterday. Would you use a PlayStation Store on PC? 45% said yes. 55% said no. And I'm like, 2.2 thousand votes. I got the right amount of people this time. There we go. 45% said yes. I mean, right. Like, I would use a store on PC for that if it provided some benefit every once in a while. Sure. Probably wouldn't flock to it. Like, I've used most of the stores at some point. Although I'm like, I don't want to open Epic anymore. That's always frustrating. But I'd have to for Fortnite and a handful of other things. So, yeah. How about you, Jan? If PlayStation Store popped up on PC, you going to be using that? Going to be using the overlay?
Sure. If anything, to cash in a PlayStation code, later use on my PS5 instead of using the website.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's as long as they don't take games off of Steam, I think this is going to be just fine.
Don't put that into the universe, Grubb.
Yeah, I mean, because I think, and I don't think that's what they're doing. I think this is like them being like, okay, we will occasionally have stuff that maybe launches a little bit early on the PlayStation Store. Here's how I view it. If this is their plan to put games out day and date on PC, but it's on the PlayStation Store for the first couple of years and then goes to Steam, I'm like kind of okay with that, because they were going to do that. That was the plan anyhow, but it was just not going to be on PC at all.
Are you almost done?
Yeah, I'm almost finishing up right now, kiddo. Yeah, no problem. Okay, that sounds good. Come on up here. And if that's what they're planning, I'm mostly okay with it. But if it's like, hey, we're going to start trying to pull all our stuff away because we don't want to deal with Steam anymore, it hasn't worked for anyone else. I don't think it would work for PlayStation. Yeah, look at that. Put Luigi up there, right up to this camera. There you go. It's been heavy on Mario in this house right now, Jay. It's wild how they go back and forth sometimes. But Mario back at number 1 apparently. All right, new poll question. I have it over here. Have you ever played a Mafia game? Yes or no? We will answer that on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow. We'll get the results. Speaking of Giant Bomb, in a little bit, I will be playing Fallout New Vegas. I got to finish getting that all set up, but we'll get that running here in a little bit. Later today is Voicemail Dump Truck, where we will have Chef Reacts on there talking to Mike Minotti and Dan Reichert about food.
Great. Yep.
Great. So there, we'll deal with that. We will deal with the ramifications of whatever fallout happens there. Tomorrow we'll have UPF. We're going to be playing more content morning. We're going to show Jan and Dan around in that game. And then we should have the first like semi-regular Power Bomb cast, right? Is that how that's going to work?
Yes. For folks that are tired of us talking about wrestling in every corner of this website, we've created or at least reopened the containment zone.
Containment zone is open.
The containment zone is open. We're hoping to do the Power Bombcast on a more regular cadence, possibly, and at least how it looks right now, switching off every Friday between PCR and Power Bombcast.
Yep. With flexibility as needed. I'm sure we'll find times where it's like we'll move stuff around there, but that's the general idea, and I like it. Sounds good to me. Also, Jan, I like it when you hang out with me on Thursdays to talk about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
I've not been able to properly celebrate a Thursday since the last time I was on the show. I'm just vibrating in anger where I'm at.
Things have not felt right. And I'm glad we could correct the universe once again, everybody. And as always, you are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Up there, right there.
Can you say